What's up guys, my name is Ace, and today we're going to be talking about how to stay alive longer, go on longer streaks, and therefore increase your kill-death ratio in Infinite Warfare. This video is designed for everybody from the beginner player that's struggling to earn those first few score streaks, all the way up to the veteran players that are looking to earn deatomizer strikes and juggernaut medals. Let's get into it. Alright guys, so first up, I just wanted to say, for those of you guys that have been around my channel for some time now, you'll probably recognize this video. A lot of the stuff in this video is going to be the same tips that I gave for my Black Ops 3 Stay Alive Longer video, and that's simply because it works. Having said this, I am going to be bringing a lot of Infinite Warfare specific tips in here, so even if you've seen that video before, I will have something for you here. And the first thing I want to cover with this video is the playstyle and the mindset involved. Most people put far too much weight on the class setup that you're using, or the variant that you're using, or the rig that you're using, and while that stuff can help, and I will be discussing it later on in the video, it's mainly about playstyle and mindset in the game. The playstyle I'm going to be describing here, and the one you'll be seeing in the background of at least this first gameplay, is a cautiously aggressive playstyle. So I'm not camping, and I'm not running around like I'm clueless and have no idea what's going on around me. I'm trying to maximize my kills while minimizing my deaths. And this is what this video is all about. It's not about being able to camp all game and get like 7 kills and 1 death or 2 deaths or something like that. No, this is about getting tons of kills and minimizing your deaths while doing so. Also, the playstyle I'm going to be talking about is best suited to team deathmatch, but you can take certain principles and apply it to objective game modes. Just keep in mind, if you are in objective game modes, please be a good team player. Objective first, kill-death ratio second. So the first principle I want to bring up with this playstyle, and you'll notice throughout this game, is stick towards the edges of the map. If you're always towards the edge of the map, that's one whole area you don't have to worry about in your head. You can completely cut that out of your mind as a danger zone. There's no enemies over there because that's outside the map. Whereas if you go to the middle of the map, then you might have to worry about 360 degrees because you might get surrounded, instead of at most 180 degrees, but in most cases, if you stick towards the edges of the map, it'll be even less than 180 degrees. Now sometimes it's definitely tempting to go towards the middle of the map because that's often where a lot of the fighting takes place, and it's okay to sometimes venture out there a little bit, pick off a kill or two, and then get back towards the safety of the edge of the map. Just don't linger towards the mid-map area in most situations. So now that we know that we're sticking towards the edge of the map, what do we do exactly? Do we just kind of lock down one area of the map, or do we constantly try and run circles around the map? And the answer to that is you do what the situation demands. This is a playstyle that I describe as push-pull. So you push towards your enemies and be aggressive when the situation demands it, and then recognize when it's time to pull back and let the enemies come to you. You'll notice throughout this gameplay, sometimes I'm pushing, I'm being aggressive, I'm getting my kills, and then a lot of times immediately after that, I'm backing off, I'm retreating, I'm letting the enemies come to me, and I'm letting them walk right into my sights. This playstyle is excellent for going on the longer streaks, especially if you're going for like a deatomizer strike or a juggernaut streak or something like that, because you're being unpredictable and you're also being aggressive enough that you're getting lots of kills. So if you're one of those players that typically just rushes way too much, like you can get a lot of kills, but you also tend to get a lot of deaths, don't be afraid to back off, retreat sometimes, get behind your teammates, get a reload in, regroup your thoughts, and then get back in the fight. There's nothing wrong with that at all. If you're on the other end of the spectrum and you tend to play too slow and you don't get very many kills, you don't see very many gunfights in a match, you probably want to start pushing a little bit more. Also keep in mind that you do have to adapt to the enemies that you're playing against as well. If you're playing really aggressive enemies that are constantly putting pressure on you, a lot of the times the best move is to let them walk into your sights. If they're coming to you anyways and they're not using cover, then the best move for you is to use cover and let them come right to you. This doesn't mean you need to camp all the time against these people. You still want to make pushes yourself, but you need to realize that with those types of enemies, it's better to pull a little bit more than push. Now, when the tables are turned and your enemies tend to be camping a lot or being very defensive, then you want to be the one pushing a little bit more, but make sure you're doing it in a smart way. Don't be that guy that's just running into their sights while they have perfect cover. So when you are pushing, make sure you're using cover and you're using the movement system to your advantage in the face-to-face gunfights, and try your best to get on the flank of the enemies and shoot them in the back or the sides so that you're guaranteed to win those situations. This also comes with always sticking towards the outside edge of the map. This means that once you push through, you will end up on the flank of your enemies. Whereas if you push through the middle of the map, it's a lot less likely you're going to end up on the flank. So that's the general playstyle and mindset that I have when I'm trying to stay alive for a long period of time, maybe go for a deatomizer strike, or just earn those higher score streaks. Push the enemies towards the edges of the map using cover and the movement system to your advantage, and learn to recognize that point when you need to pull back and let the enemies come to you. Now you're probably wondering, how do I know when that point is where I need to pull back? And the only way to really get to this point is through experience. So every time you die for being too aggressive or getting yourself into a situation where you just had no options and you couldn't get out of that situation, think back to before the death and try to find that moment where it was the point of no return, essentially, where you made that decision to either push or just not get out of that situation, and where if you would have decided to pull back, everything would have worked out just fine for you. All it takes is just recognizing that point, and then the next time you get into a similar situation, you have that reference experience to draw from. And this happens subconsciously once you get enough of these experiences under your belt. You'll automatically have that little voice in your head that's like, okay, now's the moment, you have to pull back, because remember all those other times? This is that point where if you push, you're going to get yourself killed. So pull back. Once you develop that little subconscious voice in your head, it can help you so much to go on these longer streaks. Now, one last thing I want to talk about for like actual in-game tips, and this is designed not so much for the veteran players, but for all the other players out there. How do you know where the enemies are if they're not showing up on the minimap? Like if you don't see their dots on the minimap, how do you know where to push to? How do you know where to find the enemies at? And it's a pretty simple principle, at least for Team Deathmatch, it's quite a simple principle. When you look at your minimap, wherever you don't have teammates, that's where an enemy could potentially be. So always be searching for those pockets on the minimap where you don't have teammates. Use this as a general guideline to find enemies, but at the same time recognize that it's not completely foolproof, and sometimes you get that enemy that pops up like right in the middle of all your teammates. It happens, so still be aware of the fact that enemies could pop out of some random place that you didn't expect, but on average, look for those pockets where you don't have teammates, and that's where the enemies are likely to be. Also, if you're looking for an area to pull back to or retreat to, just an area of safety, maybe you're hurt or something like that, always try to pay attention to where your teammates are spawning. If you see a teammate pop up on your minimap in a particular area, that's going to be your safe zone. Now, of course, there are exceptions to this. There are situations where you spawn near an enemy. It does happen, but generally, if a teammate is spawning there, or if multiple teammates are spawning in an area, that is going to be your safe area that you want to retreat to. So that's everything gameplay related that I want to cover. Now let's get into the setup and the stuff you can do before you actually get into the game. So we'll talk about combat rigs, classes, and score streaks. So first, let's have a look at combat rigs. Now for this particular playstyle, if I'm trying to go on the biggest streak possible and absolutely maximize my kill-death ratio, I'm not going to be touching any of the payloads that are weapons. Now these can be great for going on those little sprees, they can be really fun, and they can get you some nice free kills, but a lot of the times also I find that they can get you into some situations that are not really favorable to you because they force you to be a little bit too aggressive. And you often bite off more than you can chew when you're using some of these payloads. So I tend to stick to the abilities that are going to help me stay alive longer and maybe give me a free gunfight win or something like that. So the rig combinations that I absolutely love for staying alive longer, you don't necessarily have to follow these 100%, but these are what I like, are first off, Merc with Infusion and Reactive Armor. Infusion allows you to heal up faster after taking damage, and Reactive Armor is great if you just get yourself into one of those situations that you don't like and you're in that like, oh crap situation, I should have backed away sooner. It basically gives you a free out of that situation most of the time. The second setup that I really like to use is FTL Jump combined with Supercharge. So Supercharge allows you to charge up your payload super quick as long as you're walking over the bodies of the people you kill. It's kind of like a scavenger pack that increases the rate that you can earn your payload. And that FTL Jump I just find is excellent also for those situations where I want that free gunfight win. Maybe I run into an enemy face to face, I wasn't expecting it. I can FTL Jump behind him, or I can just FTL Jump out of the way. I can use that in a lot of situations to either attack my enemies or evade my enemies. And it charges so fast that you get to use this so many times throughout a game, and it's very valuable to use. And the final setup that I like to use when I'm trying to stay alive longer is going to be FTL's Phase Shift combined with, once again, Supercharge. Again, Phase Shift, at least in its current state, charges super quickly, so you get to use this many times throughout a game. And again, if you get yourself into a situation you don't like, just Phase Shift into a different dimension. You're completely safe there. You can run away, you can run behind your enemies. and it just provides you with so many different options, and it's a great way to stay alive longer. Those are the 3 setups that I personally enjoy using. Of course, like I said, you can use what you want to use, and if you want to use a payload that's a weapon, feel free. Just keep in mind, these are the ones that really work for me. As for class setups, this is something where I don't want to go into too much detail, because I highly encourage you guys to play around with a lot of variety, find out what works best for you and your particular playstyle. Having said this, I am going to mention a couple things that I feel are either must-haves or they're going to help you when you're going on longer streaks. The first one is Ghost. In my opinion, if you're playing a respawn game mode and you aren't using Ghost, you're doing something wrong. It is far too powerful in its current state to not use. And that even applies when you're not using a suppressed weapon. At least in those situations when you're not using a suppressed gun, you control when you pop up on the minimap. It's such a terrible feeling when you get a great flank on and you're coming up behind the enemies and they call a UAV in, and you don't have Ghost on. It completely screws that up for you. Whereas if you have Ghost, it won't impact you at all. The second thing that I'd recommend, especially if you're going for deatomizer strikes, is obviously Scavenger. You want to be able to pick up ammo and keep going with the gun that you're comfortable with. Having said that, if you're comfortable with scavenging guns and you aren't going for that deatomizer strike, so it doesn't matter which gun you're using, then you don't really need to run Scavenger. And finally, for a tier 3 perk, I do recommend Hardwired. I would say it's the least important out of like Ghost and Scavenger for going on long streaks, but it is still really helpful to have. It just counters so many things in the game, and one of the biggest ones is counter UAV. It really sucks not having your minimap available to you, so pop that Hardwired perk on, and you'll never have to worry about a counter UAV. As for score streaks, UAV and advanced UAV aren't going to be like super powerful in this game because, like I said, in its current state, Ghost is like completely overpowered. Having said this, I would still recommend running a UAV so you pick off those few people that aren't running Ghost, and also a lot of the times those people that aren't running Ghost will give you a really good indication of where the rest of their team is, even if the rest of their team is using Ghost. So UAVs can still be really helpful. Counter UAVs are great because it causes a lot of confusion for a lot of players if they can't see their minimap. And then I like to pick another streak that doesn't take me out of the fight. My favorite at the moment is the Warden. The Warden, for me at least, on average, seems to get quite a few kills, and I don't have to do anything with it. I just call it in and it does its own thing. I don't have to lay down and control it or anything like that. I can keep my gun up, I can keep in the fight, and the Warden just adds on to my total kill count while distracting enemies. So there we have it. That's going to wrap it up for today's video on how to stay alive longer and earn more streaks in Infinite Warfare. I'd like to know in the comment section below, what's your strategy for staying alive longer in Infinite Warfare? If you enjoyed the video, a like rating is always appreciated, and don't forget to subscribe for more if you haven't already. I'll talk to you guys next time.